cloud computing, the concept, and a small, rather than a demo, how I can create an instance in AWS. These are the two things which we are going to look at. So, so typically, what are the things which we are going to look at? Like, what is cloud computing? Why it is popular? Where is, like, we will touch upon it, where it is used and all, but not in detail. And when we are not going to cover, and how I can use cloud computing. This is what the 4W and 1H approach is there. And if you see at the bottom in the cursive line, these are the things which you can try out yourself, which where I start with curious minds, find out what's meant by 4W and H. So these are the things. That's the way the presentation is kept. So there will be a concept, and if you want to learn more, what are the things? What are the additional things which you can learn? So that's how the whole presentation is all about. So let's start with what. So what is cloud computing? So cloud computing, in a classical definition, it's on-demand availability of computer system. What does a computer system means is similar to a desktop. You can create a server. What it will have is CPU, storage, power, and memory, and then probably a screen which you normally don't require on a server, which is required on a desktop. So this is what the information and these resources which will be required for cloud computing. And if you look at what cloud computing is all about, it's on demand and without direct management of the user. Like, I want the server, I should get it, and I should get it without any other intervention. I say that I want a server, I get it the next moment. To understand to understand what cloud computing is, let's go back to 2000 era, where how the system was built earlier. So essentially, what used to happen was, the user used to say that I want a server, which used to be a proper DBA. Then the server used to come at the data center. The server used to go on a rack where it will be mounted. It will be powered up. It will be all given all the necessary connections. And then once it is powered on, then what used to happen was, there used to be post, that is power on self test. When I power up, is everything all right? Whatever the hardware which I have received is all right or not. Once that is that is okay, then what we will do is, the server guys would put it on the network. Before installing the OS, they will get the licenses. So for example, for Windows, you will need licenses. For other RHEL and others, you will need a support license, where I need a support from, say, Red Hat for a year. So a support license I need. So both the license has to be there. I will install install the OS. Once I've installed the OS, that doesn't mean that I give everything to the user. The main user, the administrator configuration used to be with the administrator guys, and they will configure the users to the rights and give it to the requester that, yeah, this is what your server is. It's all ready. You can use it for whatever the purpose you want. So what they used to do was give only the bare operating system to the end user. Now, if you look at the things which you can try out, you should look at what is meant by a rack and what is mounting in the rack. So you can just go on the internet, look at the racks and how the power is given. So that is a kind of exercise which you can look at and see yourself what data center looks like, what a rack in the data center looks like. So So typically, if you look at this, if I have to follow the entire process, it used to take 3 to 7 days. So it means that after I have ordered, after the server has arrived in the data center, it will take 7 days to have it in my hand. So this was the scenario typical early 2000 where the server was physical. So what happened was like, so essentially because of this lead time, any application scaling means like today I have 5,000 users and I'm going to get 4,000 users within say next 4 months. Then I have to plan for first my sizing, that okay, I'm going to have 4,000 more users coming in. I need to have more servers. I need to have set those servers, bring those to new servers in my application. So the whole process used to take something like a month or so just to have application scaled up. So essentially then the idea came, why not do some kind of a virtualization? What does virtualization means? It's like creating a certain virtual uh, thing rather than actual. It might be a virtual computer, virtual hardware, virtual storage, anything. So this is virtualization is a very generic term which is used in computer in terms of storage, network, uh, uh, CPUs, memory. So this is what a virtualization as a concept is. So if you look at now virtualization diagram, let's look at how, what does virtualization mean. So I have a server hardware which is also called as bare metal. So this is another thing which has come up post this virtualization area, that okay, what is bare metal is pure server. So these are the terms which you will know, and when you go to industry, people will start talking about, I want bare metal, I want virtualized. So these are the things which will be there. So server will have its own host OS, because this OS will be very very specific to server, which is bare minimum, which is required to manage the resources of the server. On top of that, there is something called as a hypervisor, which allows mounting of multiple OSs, mounting of virtual images. So if you see on the top, you have a guest OS, and on a guest OS, you can have any application. So what can be a guest OS? Guest OS can be anything. It can be an Windows machine, it can be a Linux machine, and any Linux variation which is there, that can be there. So this is what the overall virtualization means. That means if I have, let's say, take a simple example. If I have only one server with say 16 CPUs, I can have n number of virtual machines on on the physical server. So I can say that okay, first machine you can take 2 CPUs, second machine you can take 3 CPUs, for third machine you can take 4 CPUs. Does that mean that all the machines are going to take so many CPUs? No. This is the limit, maximum utilization limit of that virtual machine. It need not be a dedicated 4 CPUs. It can be, it will say that maximum you can go to 4. So with that, what happens is all the applications will not use CPUs all the time, or the maximum CPUs all the time. So you can have, virtually you can have, even if I have say 10 CPUs, I can allocate say 15 CPUs, I can allocate 16 CPUs. So with that, my utilization of the server is much better. What used to happen earlier days was CPU with the total workload used to be like 20%, 15%, 30%, 40%. So here I can go to higher workloads, and that gave a better utilization of the hardware which was there. So here a small thing which you can look at is, there is another thing, another word which typically you will hear, containerization. Just have a look at what is the difference between a virtualized environment and a containerized environment. So I'm not going to go into that, just to understand what are the different things which are coming up. So now let's go back to what was the process earlier. Now what has happened is, the server request, mount, power up and connect. It's a one-time process for me. Like the server has come, I have done my installation of OS, installation of my hypervisor, and it's done. So then what is next is, then what I need to do is, I need to get licenses and provision the virtual machine, configure users and give it to the requester. So essentially, this is purely a software-driven work rather than any physical work which I have to do. So that has reduced the time uh, to something like few hours. Then what everybody said, okay, 3 or 4 hours I can get a server. So fair, but if I need to make it faster, is it possible? So then came up something like self-service portal, where similar to, I log into my machine, I log into my portal, and I say that I want a Linux machine of 2 CPUs, 16 GB RAM, and the 8 GB hard disk, 8 GB storage on this machine for this network. Once I do that, what happens is there is something called as automated provisioning. So there are scripts. Typically, what I will do is I'll run the scripts and provision the machine, and that's how, once these two have become a norm, the time for deployment of a server is like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Amazon gives us in seconds. So this is where this on demand has come up, and it has come to a stage where you can get a server virtually, like it's there with you. Even though it's not there with you, you ask for it, you will get it. So this on-demand provisioning of the server, look at the word provisioning. This is another word which you will hear all the time, that, okay, I need to provision a server. So this is another thing which you will always hear from the systems guys, that, okay, I need a server, I need to provision a server, I need to provision a storage. So these are the things. Provisioning is another word which you can look at. Uh, so, so this is called as infrastructure as a service. Why as a service? Because you have a self-service portal where you are getting a service to provision a server. So that's why S is an in IaaS, like infrastructure as a service, is very, very important. What it does, it has abstracted you from the complexities of creation, complexities of installation of OS, complexities of creation of users, complexities of mounting the drives. Everything is abstracted by the IaaS platform. And with this IaaS platforms, what you can do, so it's like, in addition to IaaS, you can look at what the definition of a service is. As soon as the service is there, there is something called a service level agreements. Like, okay, I will give you a service, and I will give you a server within 5 seconds. It's kind of a service level agreement. So this is one kind of agreement which is there between a user and the platform provider. So you can look at what the service level, like other service level agreements which are there. So let's look at what is the, without direct active management of the user. That means if I'm not involved in anything, the first thing which is there is, which we talked about, is provisioning. Absolutely fine, the server is there. What next? Now the server is running, but I want to know what is happening on that server. What's the CPU utilization, what is the memory utilization, how much bandwidth it is consuming. So this is the function of the IaaS platform. Second thing which is very, very important is handle failures. So what can happen? Hardware can fail. The server, if I have a server which is going to fail, what will happen if it is only one server? All the virtual machines will go off. So that I should be able to handle as a platform provider. So what the hardware guys do is, they provision multiple servers, physical servers, so that even if one server goes off, the other physical server will take care of all the virtual machine load. The storage can fail. That's a very, very common thing which is there. So the storage redundancy which is there. Another thing which is very unique in infrastructure as a service is a data center failure. So what can happen, if you remember the flooding which was there last year, that flooding created problems in data centers in India because they were flooded with water. Amazon had no problems because the entire load of Indian data center was shifted to Singapore. Because the way they do it is, all the data is replicated, and the user doesn't know that his data center has moved from India to Singapore. So this is the kind of a failures which these large companies handle, and that's where they score on all others. Then another thing which is there is like, now the data center has shifted. It might happen that the server has shifted, the server IP has changed. The user should not get affected. So this is what the routing and the IP handling of the network is taken care of by the platform provider. And the most important thing is manage growth. What it means is, uh, like, if I have 5 users, if I'm a platform provider, and there are say 10 users who are there right now, and suddenly there are going to be 20 users, I should be able to provision my hardware, my resources, so that the new customers I can take in. So this is extremely, and then another thing which can happen is like the new customers. In addition to that, the existing customers can say that, okay, I need, right now I am on 20 servers and now I want 40 servers. So this, they should be able to manage the growth, and that's what the IaaS platform guys do. Who are all the providers? AWS, Azure, Google, IBM, Oracle is like, it's there. Then another cheaper option which is already available is DigitalOcean. They are also being there for long, and Alibaba. This is another very aggressive Chinese aggressive cloud guy who is there since like 5 6 years, but now they want to be aggressive. So infrastructure as a service. Let's go back to the diagram which was there. We had, in a cloud, what you have is infrastructure, a platform, and an application. So infrastructure is typically is what? A CPU, which is a compute, storage, and network. So this is what the infrastructure is. So IaaS is focusing only and only on the compute, storage, and the network. So these are the three things which IaaS platform guys will do. So who are all there, and what are the things which which they are giving? So essentially, I'm talking of three large and popular IaaS guys and their services. So Amazon gives you EC2, the Elastic Compute Cloud. Google gives you a compute engine, and Microsoft Azure gives virtual machines. Essentially, all three are giving virtual machines. Microsoft has given them a clean, simple name rather than the compute engine and EC2, where those are a bit cryptic. Microsoft has come out with very simple names. So now let's look at platform as a service. So platform is, what can be a platform? Platform can be like a database. So we take a simple database which everybody knows. That's why have to, so one of the things can be a MongoDB. Second is a MS SQL Server or MySQL. Google has come out with the Firebase. So all these guys, what they will, right, earlier what we were talking about is, give me CPU, give me RAM, give me storage. Now what we will say is, I want an instance of MongoDB where the transactions will be, say, 1,000 transactions of write and 20,000 transactions of write, 20,000 transactions of read every 2 hours. So this is what I will tell. So now what the platform providers are abstracted me, they have abstracted me from hardware, and they have abstracted me from installation of the server, the MongoDB, and administration of MongoDB as well. So they will say that, I will give you, for this your requirement, I will ensure that your MongoDB instance is up and running 24 hours, and there won't be any glitch. All the transactions will not fail. So these are all your agreements which will be there. We were talking about service level agreements. Now these are the service level agreements which are for the database. So this is how the platform as a service will typically work. Third very interesting thing which is there is like application as a service, SaaS, where software as a service, as which is the simplest of the things which everybody knows is Office 365, Gmail. Those are typically the application as a service. I do not know what hardware it is. I do not know anything. I just know that I go to gmail.com, log into my account, and I see my mails. I go to Office 365, I open my Word, I open my PowerPoint, download my installable, and I start using my Office 365. So essentially, now what has happened is the providers have abstracted the user from everything other than the service. So you go to any service providers which give you software as a service, where you can just log in and use their service. So this is a very, very common space which is there wherever you see that. Go to where you have different plans of yearly, 20 rupees yearly, 30 rupees yearly, or 1000 rupees yearly. So these are all the software as a service. If you are a photography fan, then Adobe has the services for photography, creative, everything which is there as a service. And why software as a service has become popular is because the in the payout from a user to the company is lower monthly, which rather than 15,000 or 20,000 or 35,000 rupees as a software cost. And second thing is, it's good for companies as well, because the user continues to pay money for years together. So essentially what happens is, so Office 365, you will always get a better feature than say Office 2018 or 2019. Office 2018, you will never get an upgrade of a feature, while Office 365, you will always get the latest which is there. So even if you have Office 2019, Office 365 today will have better features than Office 2019. So this is how they keep the users attracted, and they keep the users attached to the service. Okay, now coming to a simple, very, what we can do is, how do I start using the cloud? So here, I'm not going to cover the platform as a service or application as a service. We will just look at what is IaaS, the infrastructure as a service. So, and that too for AWS, the Amazon Web Services. So essentially, what are the things which I need if I want to create a simple Linux instance on AWS? So what I need is a simple Amazon account. I should know the basics of network, few protocols. Then what is a PEM file? This is bit uh, for authentication of the users. This is what will be required. And once I create the instance, what do I do with that instance? So for that, some basic commands of Linux, where you can play around with the Linux machine. Okay. Now Amazon account. The first thing you should remember is, if even if you have an Amazon account already set up for your shopping, do not use that account. There are two things which are there. One is, you want you have to use the same account, and what has happened is, typically what happens is, these accounts sometimes get hacked. And what you will do is, you will try to close this account. Once you close the account, you will not be able to use your Amazon account for shopping as well. And once it is closed, you cannot reopen it for a year. So essentially, it is better that you create another account for Amazon only for AWS. Second thing which will be required, so as shopping account, you will also require a credit and debit card, which you will have to provision. And once you sign up with that debit and credit card, they'll deduct something like 2 rupees or a rupee, and then credit back after 3 days, just to authenticate that that credit card is valid. What do I get with that account? I get services for 12 months free. Will I get all the services free for 12 months? Not all. There would be a limit on the services. Like if I take a very large server, it won't be free on the free account. So they will give you a smaller version, and that's what uh, this account will provide you as a free, as a free service. Second thing, will I be charged? Right now, no. But there is a caveat which will say that As long as you are within the limits of the service, you will not be charged. So, for example, if I have a limit of say I can upload say 20 GB of data per month. If I cross 20 GB, I will be charged. So if you want to limit that as well, there is a provision given by Amazon that I should not cross 0 rupees. So if you cross 0 rupees, they will stop your service. So all these provisions are there in Amazon. Okay, let's come to a simple thing. What what is a web URL? So when I say http www.web.com :1211/mera.html. So this means I have divided that into 5 parts. First is the protocol, which is your HTTP protocol. www is a space or a subdomain. Many of you will know that www means World Wide Web. When internet started, there were multiple spaces which were there. There was a Gopher space, and there was www. So everybody www was specific to World Wide Web. Gopher used to come with gopher.web. So this is nowadays other spaces are not there. It's more or less only www. So essentially, this has become a space or a subdomain. So I can have x.web.com. That is also allowed. The domain is not www.web.com. Its domain is only web.com. That's your root domain. So all the requests will be resolved based on web.com. Next thing is port. Port is like if I have a house, and that house is my IP address, while my port, and if I take a service of say cable, the cable comes to my house. So the cable is terminated at certain place in my house. That certain place is my service port. That's where I will get the service from. Like if I don't provide that space, I will never get that cable service. So this is what this port typically means. And it's essential that just find out what this TCP/IP is all about. And the last one is the mera.html. So everybody knows HTML. So this is what the HTML file which will be accessed over the HTML. So essentially, with this URL, I'm telling go to www.web.com over HTTP and go to the port 1211 and get me the document mera.html. So this is what this URL means. So there are standards for this URL as well, like what is the maximum length of the URL, what are the other things which will be there. So this you can definitely read about. Now if you look at another thing which you should look at is the TCP/IP, what each of the TCP/IP protocol means, especially the application layer. If you see on the right hand side, there are application level many protocols which are there. It's better that you read at least one application, know about at least one thing, how this application layer protocol works. Second is the transport TCP protocol, what is that TCP protocol means, and what TCP protocol provides. Just to give an example here, this port of 1211 is provided by the TCP layer, while the IP layer provides the IP address. So essentially, if I know the IP address, that doesn't mean that what will happen is I can reach to that house, nothing more than that. But if I want to reach to a service, then I must have a port for it. So that's where the TCP layer comes in. It's a transport layer. So it's better that you just read more about TCP/IP, and that will give you a complete idea about how whole internet is working about. I, Another thing few things which I'm covering out here are like, what is the domain name resolution? So when I say, here I have taken example of I've taken medium.com. So medium.com, when I type medium.com, what really happens? From my browser, as soon as I type medium.com, browser goes to the DNS resolver, goes to the name server. So if I don't get uh, go to the name server, and if the name server doesn't know the domain name where that IP, what that IP is, it goes to the level above a DNS server. It's hierarchy of DNS servers. So whosoever gives the first IP address, it takes back and it knows that this is the IP address I need to go. So this is what the domain name resolution is all about. Now let's look at what this HTTP request is. So when I say HTTP, by default, it's a GET request. As I said, get me this document. So HTTP is a GET request which comes to the web server. So web server is a server which understands HTTP protocol. It understands HTTP verbs. These are the get, post. These are all the verbs of HTTP. These are all protocol standards. So web server will look at, okay, this is an HTTP request for get which has come for mera.html. So what it'll do is it'll go and fetch the static resource, because it's a static resource. It'll go and fetch the static resource and give it to me. So if I have an application running, so the blue ones, if I have an application running, the web server will call saying that this is a request which has come in. You give me whatever, what are the things which you want to give. So what it will, web application will do, it will give the document back to the web server, and it will give it back to the browser. So these are the two scenarios which are there typically in a website, and essentially you should know what HTTP is, what are the HTTP verbs which are there, and how those are used. So that's where I have said, like, read more on HTTP as well. This is what will give you an edge over others, where not many people know about what are the different verbs which are there, what are the things which the verbs does. So this is another exercise which you should do and understand HTTP. Okay, now coming to a PEM file. Typically, a PEM file is a private key, a serial certificate. Basically, it's a security file which will identify you and to the server which you are reaching to. And this is in Amazon's case. This is used for on SSH, where it will tell you that this is my PEM file and I want to connect to the server. So as soon as you give PEM file and the URL, you will get logged into the server. You don't have to give any password or anything. It will just authenticate you directly, and that's very important. PEM file, whenever you provision a server or the virtual machine, rather you will once you create a key value pair for your account, keep your PEM file with you. You can always create a new PEM file, but what will happen is then the earlier PEM file will get invalidated. So you might come out, if you go on creating multiple PEM files, then it might create a problem for you also, like you will not be able to get into the server. So get the PEM file, store it with you, and store it at a secure location. Okay, another thing which you should definitely look at from a TCP perspective, I have said this is SSH port works on, or SSH works on port number 21. HTTP works on port number 80. So you must just go through what this standard port means and what are the ephemeral ports mean. So this will, once you start reading about protocols, you will understand this. Okay, what this port means, what this service means. So all this will be provided by a TCP understanding on the TCP protocol. Let's look at what are the basic Linux command before you get into creating a Linux machine. One, first, if you look at the top three commands which are there, one is manual, which means if I don't know ls, then I can say man ls. It will tell me all the information about of the ls command. Or I can say ls minus help. Or what is is a very interesting thing, where if I want to do something, I want to say list. So if I what is list, it might say, it will give you what are the commands which will provide you a list. So these are the three help commands which are very useful. Then on the first column, these are all the commands which are required to work on the files and the directories. So ls will give you list, or basically a directory listing. If I want to do, it's ls. Cd is change directory, make directory, remove directory. Touch is a very Unix like command where I want to just modify the timestamp of the machine or timestamp of the file. So I can just say touch. There is no change which will happen, but the timestamp of the server or the file will be changed. Copy, move, remove, cat, less. So these are all file related commands. Another thing which are there is like, okay, pwd is typically, you will feel that pwd is a password. It's not a password. It's the current path of the machine where you are. If you type in pwd, you will know current path. So these are the, so then you pico, nano, and vi, these are the editors which are there where you want to write a command, you want to change the configurations. So this pico, nano, and vi, these are the three things which are there. Then uh, uh, another thing which, when you start using it a bit more, top will give you what is the utilization of my utilization of server, utilization of cpu, ram, swap space. So these are all the things which are related to the performance. dfdu are the utilization commands of the disk. Netstat is utilization commands for the network. So these are all the monitoring commands. Kill and shutdown are like, you can kill a process. The way you go to task manager and kill the process, the same way there is a straight command, kill command, which you can kill the process. But here the big difference between Windows and this is, you cannot kill a process by name. You have to kill the process by the process ID. So you have to go to top, look at the process ID, and then kill it. And the simpler ones are like, who am I? Like, you go to, once you log into EC2, you don't know who you are. So you can just, who am I? Typically, you will say easy to use. It will return saying that it is easy to use. You can change the password. With password, you can change the password. History will give you all the commands which were executed prior to that instance. There is one command which I have purposely not specified, which is to enhance the rights. You can find out yourself and use it. And this is, that command is going to be very, very useful, and that will be the first thing which you will have a hurdle. You will get stuck, and that's what you should find out. Another very important thing: Unix executes commands silently. It does not ask for confirmation. So if I say rm and my file name, it will just delete it, and it will not tell you that it has deleted. It will just go to command prompt again. So what essentially means, if there is no failure, it's done. And that's where it's very, very important that whatever the commands which you give in Unix, if those are going to result in some deletion changes, be careful. Now let's come to, how do I create an EC2 instance and how do I connect it. So what you need to do is, once you create the account, you will get account number, and you can always log in as a root user. If you are a root user, you can log in as email ID and your email ID and the password. But it's not a good idea to have to log in from root user every time. So what you can create is an IAM user, identity and access manager, where I can create user with lesser privileges and then log in from this machine. So if I can say that I will always log in from, say, ops admin, and I will have no right to create EC2 instance. So as a root user, I'll create the EC2 instance. I'll tell ops admin that you can monitor the EC2 instance. So this is what you can do once you log in to manage multiple users. So you can have one user account and multiple users who can do different things. So if you see, let's start with your root user. You will see Once you log in, you will see, uh, I want to create an EC2 instance. From the services, you can just say that I want to create a EC2, click on EC2. Once you click on EC2, there are multiple things. You will have a dashboard where you can say that, okay, I want to launch an instance. Okay, so once that is where you can launch an instance. And then there is another thing, very interesting thing which is there is, uh, you will see US East Ohio. So essentially what it means is you are in the region of US East Ohio. There are like 24 regions which are there. What those 24 regions means, 24 large data centers which are there. So there is one in Mumbai as well. So you can choose um, an instance to be there depending on where your users are. Like if I have more users in Mumbai, I can create an instance in Mumbai. If it is in India, I can create an instance in India. If it is more of Hong Kong, I can create a server in Hong Kong. So essentially, this gives you a flexibility of where I can, in which data center my server would be. And that is where your planning also comes in, where, like, for example, if I have 20,000 hits in a day, and say 5,000 are coming from Canada and 2,000 coming from India. So essentially what I can do is I will create an instance in Canada where there will be lesser latency. That means better response to the Canadian guys. So for Indian guys, it will be a bit lower. Like the latency would be like 200 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds. So for a page, it will be 200 milliseconds. It will take more for Indian guys. That's how uh, why there are availability zones. In addition to this, the availability zones, as I said earlier, they provide a disaster recovery. If one data center fails, to have another data center taking up the load of the other data center. So there is a complete backup and recovery mechanism built into it. So you will never lose the data of your instance. Then a very interesting thing is, like, okay, now you have chosen that, okay, I want to launch a EC2 instance. The first thing is they will ask you is which OS. On free, you have only two options which are there. One is Linux, pure Linux with C, or second is with PHP, MySQL, and all the other packages which are available in Linux. See, yeah, AMI is Amazon's version of Linux. So these are the two things which you can do. You can install only in free service mode. So if you go to paid, then there are multiple OS images which you can choose and install. Like you will have RHEL, you will have Sent, you will have SUSE. All the instances will be available to you. So if you want to learn purely C and nothing else, you can go for a very light instance of C, like the instance on the top which talks about only C. While if you want um, the second website and other things, other applications, then you can go for um the second thing where it talks about Postgres and MySQL. If you see, there is another thing which is there. The CPU of the first machine is ARM, while CPU of the second machine is not an ARM CPU. So if you want ARM based development, you should choose this. And you guys must be knowing what is ARM and ARM architectures. So if you don't, just have a look at what are the different architectures of CPUs which are available. So ARM is very, very popular in low power devices. So these are the two. Out of this, you can choose one. Once you choose the CPU, then what you are given is only one option, which is T2 micro. You cannot use other types where there would be more of there are more compute, where they have more compute power. So what does T means? It's like T means it's time shared and burstable. What does time shared means? It's like if I am running at 5% of the CPU, I can burst to say 80% for 5 minutes. So because I have not consumed 100% utilization in a day. So if I so that's where it allows you to burst the CPU to a certain limit. So these are all T. That's what the T means. And then you have micro, mini, and micro, nano, small. Those define the CPUs, which is virtual CPUs, which are required, and the memory. So these two combination decide nano, micro, and a small, medium. MS is better than the T2 ones, where it's a general purpose machine which is used for commercial grades. And third is the C is the compute optimized, where you want higher compute power. That's where you have C instances. And then there are multiple MD5, MDN. Those are the newer ones which are there. So once you choose that this is the instance type which I want to do, what you can do out here is now configure instance details. So this is more or less, you don't have to change much here. You can just skip and go to the next. But just to give you a overview of what it is. So from here you can create multiple instances. So where I can create an auto scaling group. That means that I want right now only one machine, but if my load increases, then you can go up to 20 servers for this load. So this is where an auto scaling group comes in. Like, it's, you do not have to do anything as a user. The system will take care of the load. So this is where the power of IaaS also comes in. Then the network. It's like I can segregate my servers into multiple networks, typically you do it on a data center. So I can create smaller networks, and I can control the access of machines from one network to another. So these are all things which they allow. So these are all defined networks. It's not a physical cable which goes up. It is the configuration of the routers which happen dynamically. Next thing is the storage. Wow. How many GBs which I have, how many GBs which are there. So on a free account, typically I think it's only you can go up to 16. I'm not sure, but 8 GB is what you will get. And then there are two types. One is your magnetic disk, and second is your SSD. You can choose any of them. Those are not chargeable. So as long as this is with this limit, you can get into a server. You can create one instance and connect to the server. Then this is a simple thing which is there, where you I can this I have created the machine, but I want to tag it. So I can create a key like name, and this is my first machine. So I can create a key like name, my first machine, name, and my second machine. So any key you can create and you put a value to it, and that with that key and value you can search your machine. That's what this tag concept gives you. This is another thing which you should look at. We talked about the ports. So what it is saying now is the port which will be open by default would be SSH port 22 00001, where source is 000 means anybody and can log in. So if I give a fixed IP, then only that IP will be able to log in. So this is where your port configurations come in. Then let's look at what other ports which they allow. So you can say that all the TCP ports are allowed. Typical TCP ports are like 65,000 ports which are there. So all the 65,000 ports, anybody can access, or everything is open to them, or open to the world. Then or the specific ports which are there which can be opened. So these are all the security rules which are there which you can create. So essentially when you create, just stop at port 22 and that's it. You can experiment once you are comfortable with the machine logins, and then play with the machine, play with the groups. Once you open once you create the instance, it will ask you for a PEM file, download that PEM file, and once you come to your EC2 instance dashboards, you will see the instance. It will not be running. You will have to go to the instance state, click on it, and start it. Once it starts, it will show you running. And what you should know out here is, if you look at the bottom, there is a public DNS that you should copy and keep it with you. That is a URL with which you will be able to log into the server. So once you have a PEM file, you have the URL which you want to connect to, then I can choose from any machine. I can connect to that machine. There are two options. One is, if I have Windows, I can use PowerShell. Simple. Windows are PowerShell. It will open up the PowerShell, and then you can give a command of ssh minus I, and the full path of the file name, full path with the file name of PEM, and the URL of the machine. URL means it should not contain HTTP. This is not HTTP. HTTP works on port number 80, while this, what you should give is only qualified name of the domain. Like it will typically be AP South or AP North or US East. Those kinds of names should be there. Once you do that, you will straight away go into the server, and then you can use your Linux, practice your commands, write few scripts, and then that will give you a confidence. Yes, I know I can create a Linux instance and I can work on Linux. This will give you this is a first of things which you should know. You probably will be having Ubuntu on your machine, so you might know few commands of Linux. Same commands exactly will work there on the server. So there are two couple of things which might be different. Will be the installer, the yum installer, or the uh, app installer, depending on which system it is. That you can find out from the net, and then go on installing whatever the packages which you want, whatever the packages which you want to run. So with that, we have what we have achieved today is, we know what cloud computing is, what are the different names of SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, and the and we are able to create one EC2 instance. So you can practice this. Probably it will take initial thing. You might make a mistake. Probably you will have to delete the instance. You will have issues about how should I do this? How should I do that? Probably within 3 to 4 hours, you should be able to create an instance. You Another thing where you will struggle is this PEM file. There are quite a few videos which are there how to connect using a PEM file. Once if you are stuck, and these two hurdles are done, the machine is there with you, and then you can do whatever you want to do. Then we can look at, in the next videos, next sessions, we can look at what are the different websites which we can create, what are the other options which allows me to create a website. Like I can create a simple website instance using WordPress. Whosoever is interested, if you are quite familiar with the EC2 instance and other things, have a look at Amazon Light Sale. It's like $3.50 per month for your site. You can have a look at it, where you can create. It's again a platform as it's not a platform as a service. It's more of application as a service. $3.50. You can create your own site with minimal load, and you can demonstrate. Yeah, I have done it, and it's very simple to create that site and create. And now it's then what remains is the content. You can create site, and then you can publish your content, you can publish your photos, you can write your blogs. All that is possible with Amazon Lightsafe. So with this, I conclude on my lecture. If you have any questions, all yours.
Thank you, Shekhar.
We just overstep around 10 minutes.
Few of them are connected over here. So in case any questions are there, please ask. Else we can take the questions in group.
Okay. Yeah.